So my father always used to say to me about the tape measure. Yeah, so that's not how I learned this. So the premier way that I've always learned was watching others, asking questions, and digesting content, primarily TV. I was a big fan of HGTV, This Old House, and countless others that I would watch growing up. So, for starters, the first thing you need to begin any home improvement project, while not being an absolute necessity, if you are particularly resourceful, maybe you can get around using one. I know whenever I don't have a tape measure, I can still do precision work. But for starters, if you're going to do home projects, you need to know how to read a tape measure. So let's talk about the tape measure. This particular tape measure is just a Harbor Freight tape measure, and the reason for that is that I actually lose a lot of these. I misplace them, I leave them at customers' homes, and oftentimes it's just not worth going back into a client's home to pick up a tape measure after it's been some time and I actually realize that I've lost it. And so this one is just I believe it's about $4.99 at Harbor Freight. And the reason I choose this particular one, the 16 feet, is because the 16 footers usually go down to 30 seconds of an inch, which is particularly important for me. When I'm measuring things, I like to be relatively precise, and so a 32nd of an inch is, I believe, somewhere around 32 thou. Very small increment. I can actually infer where my 64th is from there, and the 64th is around 15 thou. That is smaller than a millimeter. Millimeter is 40 thou. So 40 thou, this is about measuring down to a 64th will give you an accuracy of about, I want to say about 0.30 of a 0.3 of a millimeter. So this is particularly useful for me. So taking a look at this tape measure, we'll notice on all tape measures is that we have this moving hook here. And this is to give you an accurate measurement, whether you are measuring inside against an object or you are measuring outside. And so the way this works is when you push this, when you're measuring an object like this, you're pushing up against it, and the hook, the thickness of the hook, is actually included in your measurement. But when you're measuring from the outside and you're hooking onto an object, the hook is actually removed from your measurement. It's on the outside of your measurement, and so this hook moves that distance to include it into your measurement. That way, if you are making a inside measurement or an outside measurement, you will still have the same numbers. You'll still be accurate. So this is the lock function if you need to lock the tape measure at a particular measurement. Another way to do it is if you are measuring on a wall that is fairly large and you don't have anyone to hold the tape measure for you, you can actually put the tape measure and hold it with your finger in position while you move along the line. And then you move your hand down, you place you move the tape measure down, you place your finger to hold it in position. You slide it down, and then you move this finger. You'll hold it on this end. You'll move this finger up, and then you'll continue pulling the tape measure down, and that will allow you to measure longer distances without having someone to hold the tape measure for you. So additionally, if we are looking at the way this tape measure is situated, so these are the smaller increments on the bottom, but for now we'll start here. And one of the first things that you'll notice is that these tick marks here, these tick marks some are different lengths than others, and these indicate the size of the measurement. Okay, so the way you would use these smaller increments here is, these are the smallest of them is 1/16 of an inch. And so what that means is that you are dividing this 1 inch section into 16 even portions. And the way you would count this is by using odd numbers. And so this is 1/16, the next one is 3/16, the next one is 5/16, the next one is 7/16, the next one is 9/16, the next one is 11/16, the next one is 13/16, and the next one is 15/16. So the next marking on the tape measure is going to be 1/8, and that is twice the size of 1/16. And so this you would count using odd numbers in the same manner. This is 1/8. This is 3/8. This is 5/8. This is 7/8. The next largest increment is going to be 1/4. So this is 1/4. This would be 2/4. This would be 3/4. And this would be 4/4 or 4/4, and 1/2 is also 1/2 of an inch. On the smaller side, it is the same. You'll just go down into smaller measurements, and so the smallest of these is 32nd, is a 32nd of an inch. In the same manner, we have the 16th again, which is identical in length to the 16th marker up here. And so these are 30 seconds. In the same manner, you would count 1 30-second, 3 30-seconds, 5 30-seconds, 7 30-seconds, 9 30-seconds, and you would continue down the line like that. If you are reading a measurement, that is getting into more accurate measurements than just using a 1/4, 1/8. But if you don't know, these are fractions, and so this is dividing this 1 inch section into a 1/8 is dividing this 1 inch section up into 8 portions, and so 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, so forth and so on. And the same thing here. 1/4 is dividing this 1 inch section into 4 sections. 1/2 is dividing this into 2 sections. Okay, so we'll cover how to, we covered what all of these numbers mean, and now we will work on some other things with the tape measure. If you look here, this hook is actually the perfect size to clip onto a nail. So if you're measuring from a particular point, you can clip the head of the nail onto the tape measure and allow it to hold it in that spot. Some other things that you can do is you can use this tip of the tape measure to drive a screw and hold it. It'll slip right in to the head of that screw. And you can use that to make measurements. Another thing you can do is use this to make a radius. And so you can put your pin on that mark. We'll do 6 inches. 6 inches is all the rage nowadays. So that seems like a good measurement, and you can just look at that. Get you a perfect 12-inch circle, 6-inch radius. Another thing you can do is use it as a straight edge. So you can hold this and get a place to make a straight line. Another thing you can do is use this to score, or you can use this to just ride the edge of a board and make a quick marking so you can cut a piece out. And so the way you would do that is you would we'll go back to our 6 inches again, our famous 6 inches, and I'll place that 6-inch right on the edge. I will place my finger right up against the board and squeeze it tight, and then I will place my knife or my whatever I'm using to mark, and I will just ride that down. And so if you can manage to sync your two hands up to operate at the same time and speed, you will get a relatively straight line, and that depends on the edge that you are running this off of. So again, okay. A few more ways to do this is also to use it as a rough approximation for an angle. Another thing I like to do is if I measure from point to point. So let's say I have a picture and it has 2 hooks on the back. And so I figured out maybe the picture, let's call the picture 12 inches. And let's say my first hook is 4 inches from the edge. And I want my next hook to be 4 inches from that. And so what I'll do is I'll place this right on the 4-inch mark, and then I will just use this to score a line, and that gives me a perfect 4-inch from point to point. And this can be important if you are measuring something that requires precise measurements, like I said, like a picture frame or a something like a coat rack or something that has keyhole slots, and you have to be able to hang it right on those 2 points. This is one way I usually do it. I'll measure those points on the back of the object. I will figure out where I need my first point, And then for my second point, let's call it 18 5/8 of an inch away exactly on the center. And I will take that and just score that line. So I try to pick these up any chance I can get. It just helps to have these around because it really kills the job when you are trying to get something done. You're in the middle of your job and you can't find your tape measure. So I tend to buy these and then just scatter them all around. And another thing is if you're measuring from a corner or into a corner, one thing you can do to get an accurate measurement in the corner is to stop short of the corner, measure, stop short of the corner, let's say 20 inches here, and then take your tape measure, place it into the corner, and add the two measurements. So this is my 20 inch, and from that point on, we have 3 3/4 of an inch. So that is plus 3 3/4, and that's 23 3/4. And so that way you can get an accurate measurement inside a corner. Another thing I can do is if I'm measuring something and I don't have someone helping me and the wall is maybe my measuring tape keeps falling, what I'll do is I'll measure a partial distance. Maybe I'll measure as long as I can reach without the tape measure bending and falling. I'll measure and I'll stop here. I'll make a mark 15 inches and then I'll continue my measurement from that point knowing that this is a 15. So I know I have to add that 15 inches onto my measurement and I can keep going down the wall in that manner. Maybe I'll, every 48 inches I'll make a mark and then I'll refer back to those particular marks. So these are just some of the ways, while not an exhaustive amount, these are some of the ways and some of the tricks that you can use. This is a indispensable tool, especially for the beginner. And so if you're starting out, this is one thing that you need to have. You need to know how to read it and how to work it. And so this is where we'll start this series. And for now, this is where we will end. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.